CBN, DBN urge microfinance banks to improve sustainable banking. Nigerian banking industry non-performing loans rise to 1.2 trillion naira in 6 months. NNPC to support Petroleum Ministry in providing alternative energy source. Plus, OPEC at 60. Member countries reaffirm faith in deeper dialogue and cooperation. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. The World Bank says the Central Bank of Nigeria must ramp up action to reduce pressure on currency markets to meet ballooning demand for hard currency in Nigeria. Even though the multilateral lender supports the restart of dollar sales following 5 months of break, it says continued and even stronger action and a clear commitment from the central bank will go a long way towards facilitating a stronger recovery. Nigeria has been at the mercy of acute dollar shortage after the Apex Bank called off its weekly interbank foreign exchange sales in March. The coronavirus outbreak and lockdown of economies triggered a slump in the price of oil, which contributes over 90% of the nation's foreign exchange earnings. Nigeria's highest external debt to a multilateral or bilateral financial institution is its $10.64 billion indebtedness to the World Bank Group. Latest figures from the Debt Management Office indicate that Nigeria's indebtedness to the International Development Association and the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development were $10.05 billion and $409.51 million. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the International Development Association are both organizations of the World Bank Group. The Development Bank of Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria have urged microfinance banks and other participating financial institutions to improve their sustainability efforts and become more responsive to their social and ecological environment. The banks said this is important as Nigeria and the global communities continued to grapple with effects of climate depletion and economic uncertainties caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The banks in a statement said the initiative is focused on deepening DBN's efforts to increase awareness on sustainability issues and also positively influence its participating financial institutions' sustainable development goals, focused initiatives, and operations. Moving on, let's now see how the Naira is exchanging for other international currencies. Nigerian banking industry's non-performing loans witnessed a 14% rise in the first half of 2020, ending a two-year trend of continued decline in NPLs since the third quarter of 2018. Latest banking sector report released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that non-performing loans in banks rose to 1.212 trillion naira at the end of June 2020 from 1.059 trillion naira recorded in December 2019. This indicates that non-performing loans across Nigerian banks rose by 152.4 billion naira, which is 14.38% in 6 months. Various intervention programs of the federal government in the agricultural sector, as well as the ban on importation of some food items, encourage the consumption of locally produced commodities and earn farmers more income, thereby increasing the gross domestic product (GDP) of the country. However, with the much availability of food items in states of the federation such as Ebonyi, Chika Okorie sought to know the reason for the hike in their prices even at harvest season.
At Umpa harvest this year, access to locally produced food items by consumers appears to be challenging due to artificial scarcity.
Farmers have suffered a lot, especially in this year. This produce we made this period, we have to hold it so that when the time we shall sell it, we shall make gain.
Our farmers in Nigeria are very, very greedy. They are not actually making use of that window which Mr. President has created for them. You can't imagine a bag of local rice costing about 25,000 naira.
The government is doing great, going into dry farming now. I know Ebonyi State has queued into that farming system.
At a time, Nigerians are trying to overcome the effects of COVID-19. Respondents argue that hoarding of food items is least expected.
It tells more on the income of the consumers. In the process of overstorage, most of these goods will get expired.
In order to crash the prices of foodstuffs, stakeholders suggest the option of regulating activities of middlemen.
On Thursday last week, the federal government ordered absolute ban on provision of forex for all imported food and fertilizer, saying nobody importing food should be given money. To shed more light on the economic benefits and implications of this directive is an economist, Yusheu Aliu. You're welcome to Business
Thank you.
Express.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good to have you again.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's begin our discussion with the question, what does forex ban actually mean?
It's just a restriction, and it is just an intervention of the central bank, being the main body in charge of government transactions. It is, of course, a model used in different economies to check the GDP and also to check the deficit that exists in trade.
President Muhammadu Buhari says no more forex for food imports as well as fertilizer. What is your take on this?
There has already been that restriction by the CBN. It is just an emphasis. There are about 41 items which the central bank put a restriction of foreign exchange, meaning that in order to protect industry, it is a protectionism instrument used to protect local industries so as to boost production locally and also to save a lot of the going away of our resources to other economies, including jobs.
This order has been there. At first, I think we had 40 items. Is it 41?
Yeah.
You now moved to 43 items.
Yeah.
Yet there were violations here and there, allegedly. Would this emphasis ended, or was there nothing like that?
You see, that you cannot prevent cartel in anything. That's why you have normal market and you have black market. And at the same time, there are other provisions that are likely closer to that policy, which some may use as an excuse to access foreign exchange in order to have other benefit. But the truth of the matter is that no economy can have self-sufficiency when you don't check your consumption pattern, especially when you have the capacity. Nigeria has the capacity to produce many things. If you check Nigerian economy before independence, it was a very robust economy. It is an economy that depends on itself. It is also the economy that other economies depend on it. So, but the attitudinal change, our attitude changes because the policymakers and the politicians, including the military, redirected the economy because of the influx of foreign dollars. From what? From petrodollars. How? Because Nigeria was among countries that are producing. So now that our population is growing, and there is no way when you are growing population, you have a population, for instance, 60% or 40 to 60% of population of West Africa is concentrated in Nigeria, and then you now see it without producing what you eat. It's going to be a catastrophe, and it's not healthy, and it is going to backfire if it is not checked.
We have a large population, and this population is growing by the day. And government has done a whole lot, particularly in rice production, courtesy the Anko Borrowers program. Farmers have been empowered, rice farmers have been empowered. We're having this commodity in the market, yet we have scarcity and we're experiencing inflation. What is the reason for this? When you mention inflation, you have to check also the situation the economy is facing, the aggregate, macroeconomic aggregate of the economy. The economy is deficient. It's deficient because it is facing a very serious issue as far as economics is concerned, that is stagflation. Stagflation is a situation where you have so much, you have persistent increase in general price level, and you also have increase in unemployment. This is, if you check the statistics of National Bureau of Statistics, about 13.9 million Nigerians youth are unemployed. This is a high number. When you check the structure of the population, and at the same time you check the alternative where they can be employed. So I think whether Anko Borrowers or any other scheme of the government, what we need to do, there are policies that you put on ground, and there are also measures that you look into. For instance, when you want to boost production, and you decided to contain the import of certain goods, as let me give an example of rice. So the food security does not mean only producing the food in the economy. Food security also entails a situation where the price mechanism is distributing those goods to different households. Talking about the price mechanism, yes, we have a good harvest, a bumper harvest in rice, but activities of middlemen is beginning to kind of limit the circulation or availability of this commodity in the market, where you have farmers hoarding these products, keeping it for such a time where the prices will go up for them to get to sell to make more gains. What do you think can be done to protect? I want to protect farmers here. It's not farmers that are hoarding. There is no way you produce your agri output and then somebody will now tell you are hoarding it. You cannot hoard what it is your own. You have the right to take it to the market. And traditionally, African economies decide when to take their goods to the market on market days. So it's not holding from farmers. The activities of middlemen, and they are taking advantage of many factors including the supply chain. There is no way, you know perfectly it's a large population, and a certain group of people form cartel, whereby they hijack all the production. Remember, if rice is produced, local farmer will not just keep rice because he doesn't have rice mill. Some people in between, the producers and the market, they are the ones making this so as to take advantage to create unnecessary scarcity. And we have seen that in many economies, but there are models you check all these excesses. Excesses where you have price stability, because one of the functions of the central bank is just to maintain price stability of general goods and services within an economy for a longer time. When you fail to have that one, that has to do with who are the managers, what are they trying to do to maintain the stability. And at the same time, consumer always want to have confidence with his income. And you check a population like Nigerian population, you see a situation where you have a large percentage of population being autonomous consumers without income, dependent. So if you have that, the economy is going to be suffering. That is why you see a situation where if inflation is rising, the greatest problem of any economy today, based on this monetization aspect, is inflation.
because inflation entails a situation where it is persistent, seemingly irresistible, general upward movement of price level. So you now see a situation where if it continues, it will erode the income. When income is eroded, your confidence as a consumer is going to reduce. How? Because your income, if you have, for instance, let us take 30,000 minimum wage of 30,000 naira, and you face with the problem of feeding a family of 5. You have to go maybe to get a bag of rice. The bag of rice is 26. So if it is 26, your price has been eroded.
26 even ranging up to 50,000 in some instances. Okay, talking about this food inflation. This food inflation, how do we curb this food inflation amidst this electricity hike that we just experienced, as well as the subsidy removal on fuel? How can you and I, the common man on the streets, get to manage the situation as government keeps bringing stimulus packages to ensure that these effects are being cushioned?
I'm not a proponent of subsidy in petroleum downstream based on many facts. It's an efficient industry, and therefore it has to be for you to have regular supplies, because right from the production, the coordination and the marketing worldwide, there is already a cartel. So I am of the opinion that anytime subsidy is mentioned, a subsidy has to be in agriculture, not petroleum, for 2 reasons. One, agriculture took larger percentage of people and with very low income. So when there is no subsidy, if inflation
creates a lot of the jobs.
And create a lot of jobs. So when a subsidy is not put in agriculture, there is likelihood some cartel to control the price. By controlling the price, they will extort the small balances of people into that. That's why you see emergence of billionaires and also the impoverished. And let me tell you one good aspect that you mentioned earlier about the prohibition of forex to import fertilizer. It's a good aspect, but we have to also look at the chain, the value chain. You also have to look at the history. Before 1960, there is no organic fertilizer in Nigeria. Nitrate, phosphate, that is NPK, potassium, NPK, DAF, urea. But a situation where this same product was pushed to the economy, and then the government also mobilizes and orients the farmers to make use of it. And government uses subsidy structure to convince farmers. At 1 naira 50 kilogram, at 1 naira 80 kobo, 1 naira 90 kobo. I was part of it at that. In 84.
What do you say about the initiative government has put in place to ensure that farmers get these fertilizers and get them at the right time? More so that we had very few blending plants, more like 3, and now we are counting up to 40.
Supply. There is no way you make farmers to have fertilizer before any season. Farmers always, if you check our peasant farmers, immediately
they
after
have to sell the produce.
Not only selling the produce. After harvest, they select the best seed and keep. They have already prepared for the next farming season. So now it's fertilizer. Stopping forex has to do with 2 options. It can be a dual-edged sword. If we are expecting Dangote to start producing, as agitated, probably 30 million tons before the next rainy season, then there is no need to give forex in order to make availability of the product. But in the event of uncertainty, and I used to be mentioning uncertainty severally in trying to control supply chains. That's exactly what happens to the rice. Before I go back to the fertilizer, yes, we are producing rice, but no, we refuse to anticipate that there is going to be either vagaries of weather, calamities, war, flooding. So flooding has taken a large percentage of what has been produced. It's going to affect the supply chain. It's going to affect the jobs. It's going to affect the incomes. It's going to even affect the individual health as a farmer. So, but for fertilizer, it is true that Dangote is expected to produce, but he cannot produce what and what. So other alternatives must be put on ground, so as in the event Dangote could not supply the 30 million, an emergency situation has to be created, and also an emergency team has to be on ground. Remember the reason why the whole world economy was into serious staggering It's
talking about the world economy, particularly the African economy, there is this hint that there is a possibility that the borders will be opened.
We have no option but to open our borders because free trade, you cannot say...
Aside free trade, how would you align that with the sufficiency we're talking about?
The sufficiency is control. When you manage your borders efficiently, USA is managing its own border. China is fighting America. China manages its own border. But they were fighting with money, with tariffs. They are all having. If you put tariff of 10%, the next government will put tariff of 30%. They are making money. So we have to create a situation where we will be creating money, not shutting down businesses. And that is my perception on that, because modern economy, we are digital in nature. NTA presently, somebody in Washington is watching. It's not like before. Somebody is taking advantage of what we are discussing here to come and invest in agriculture. So when you don't have free trade, Professor Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is about winning the Director General of World Trade Organization, where all these restrictions are going to be covered. So we have to quickly dance so as to help her to succeed. You cannot go and make free trade while your borders are closed here.
Thank you so very much, Shehu Aliyu, for sharing your thoughts with us. From what we've heard, it is progress and it can only get better as we're doing better, not just at home, but in Africa as well as globally.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, moving on, gold prices were flat on Monday as investors maintained a cautious approach ahead of U.S. Federal Reserve's monetary policy decision this week, and as optimism around a potential COVID-19 vaccine lifted appetite for riskier assets. Here is a graphical illustration as put together by Olayinka Ojo. Exactly 6 decades ago, a group of determined nations endowed with rare but significant natural resource took the bold step of deciding their fate regarding benefits accruing to them. The outcome of the decision, now known as the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, has become a household name as far as global supply and pricing of crude oil is concerned. As OPEC marks a significant milestone, correspondent Lydia Sampson looks at the role of OPEC in a new normal.
60 years ago, 5 developing nations, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, gathered in the Al-Shabaab Hall, Baghdad, to decide on a course of action that changed the course of history. They agreed to found the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. The brave and pioneering act of the then 5 countries changed the narrative in the global oil and gas market through an expression of a firm belief that cooperation and dialogue among nations are the most effective means of overcoming the industry's challenges. Though OPEC has faced highs and lows, trials and tribulations, yet 60 years later, it is still a unified intergovernmental organization. The fact that OPEC has evolved and thrived over the last 6 decades is a source of tremendous pride for the entire OPEC family. OPEC Secretary General Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo described the Baghdad conference as not just historic in all senses, but saw the common vision and wisdom of the founder members and led to the creation of a four-sided organization that grew in stature and influence to become a distinguished entity within the global energy community.
Can help guide our organization and the petroleum industry to a bright and sustainable future despite the huge challenges that we are facing today.
Barkindo said OPEC yet to look forward with high anticipation to attend OPEC's homecoming in Baghdad in the very near future. This month, OPEC is also marking the 55th year since the organization's secretariat moved to the Austrian capital of Vienna. OPEC's outreach to non-OPEC partners yielded the historic Declaration of Cooperation, further elevated by the Charter of Cooperation. These historic decisions constitute a determination by 23 oil-producing countries to take the collective actions necessary whenever to contribute to oil market stability.
And on the capital markets, transactions at the close of Monday trading on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange ended in positive territory. The oil share index for Monday, 14th September 2020, gained 0.05% to close 25,605.59 basis points, with market capitalization at 13.3 trillion naira, a total of 257 million shares valued at 3.3 billion naira. In 3,567 deals exchanged hands at the end of the session. Custodian, Guarantee, and WACO were the most active stocks. CAP, Danksem, and WACO were the top gainers at the end of today's trade. Stocks in Asia Pacific rose in Monday trade, with investors watching shares of Japanese conglomerate SoftBank Group following an announcement of its sale of UK chip designer ARM. Bosiriable takes it from here.
Global stocks are receiving a boost from news that phase 3 trials of coronavirus vaccine have resumed in the UK after trials were halted last week over safety concerns. European stocks were mixed in early trading of Monday morning, erasing opening gains which came on the back of a resumption of coronavirus vaccine trials. Stocks in Asia rose, with investors watching shares of Japanese conglomerate SoftBank Group following an announcement of its sale of UK chip design ARM. Nikkei rose 0.65% to close at 23,559.3. Shanghai Composite up 0.57% to 3,278.81, while the Hang Seng Index rose 0.56% as of its final hour of trading. U.S. stock futures rose early Monday after a sell-off in tech shares led to the market's first back-to-back weekly declines in months. Dow Jones Industrial Average futures added 0.48%. The move implied a gain of more than 152 points at the open. S&P 500 futures were up 0.05% and Nasdaq 100 futures were up more than 0.6% as tech shares rebounded in pre-market trading. While in Africa, stocks opened mixed, with South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40, Ghana's GSA Composite, Nairobi's All Share, and Tunisia's Tunidex posting gains.
This is where we end this episode of the program. Don't forget you can access this and all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is @NTA News Now. The hashtag is #BizX. We value your feedback. Do join us again on Tuesday by 9:30 p.m. for another package. I am Benny Adams saying stay safe.